Welcome to the Three Count Commentaries April Q&A. It's a little late this month because I had a birthday, so I was pretty off put for a little while. But we're finally going to get it in as far as April Q&A. So I got a couple of questions here. Let's just jump right into them because it's been a long time. Alto Johnson with question 1: What wrestlers in modern day you would love to see as fight coordinators in Hollywood or entertainment? Well, since I learned that Chavo Guerrero was doing it, I was like, pretty much anybody who has a lot of experience in pro wrestling could probably be a pretty good fight coordinator. But I would look at it in terms of, Randy Savage used to write his matches out beat by beat. So somebody who does that would probably be a good fight coordinator. People who are kind of let's do it on the fly kind of wrestlers probably wouldn't make good fight coordinators at all. But somebody who scripts their matches out, like a Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks or somebody like that, they probably would make pretty good fight coordinators. It depends on what kind of fight you want to see, though, because their matches are like kung fu movies. You watch like Jackie Chan movies where everything is in its proper place, so he could push this table and the table hit the bad guy in the knees or something like that. That's kind of how their matches are, where everything is so perfectly well placed that you could visualize them putting it there for the purpose of using it later. So maybe those kinds of guys, maybe a Kenny Omega or somebody like that. King Smart, your thoughts on the Colby Covington and Jorge Mos-Vidao situation, and will you cover MMA or boxing related topics on your channel? I do like MMA, but I don't follow it religiously. I don't follow it enough to have like a really deep, thorough opinion. Now, on the Colby Covington, Jorge Mos-Vidao situation, as far as I know, Jorge Mos-Vidao jumped Colby Covington in the street, like attacked him in the street because Colby Covington was running his mouth about his kids and stuff leading up to the fight. And Colby Covington actually won the fight. A lot of people really have a negative view of Jorge Mos-Vidao, but I think it's mostly an honor thing. Like they tried to settle it in the cage, and that's where you settle these things. You don't settle these things in the street. And I agree with that. If you had the opportunity to fight him in the cage, and yes, the cage has rules, and you're kind of like, fuck the rules, I'm about to take it to the streets. That's not really the best way to do things. They're sportsmen, and Jorge Mosvidal agreed to the rules of the fight, and he lost the fight. So that should be, I'm not saying that he shouldn't still be pissed. He should want a rematch if that's what he wants. He should tell him, hey, I'll fight him for free again. But trying to take it to the street, man, it's just assault at that point. I think Colby Covington, he played the heel pretty well on that situation, because even afterwards, he was like, oh no, he attacked me in the street. And he was basically whining about it. And I was like, okay, this is bullshit. Obviously he's just doing this to drum up, sympathy. But Mosvidal was wrong. Yes, Covington shouldn't have said the shit that he was saying, and most MMA fighters shouldn't say the shit that they say. They do it because they learned it from pro wrestling, that you can say whatever you want, and the Muhammad Ali effect on boxing, that you say whatever you want about people's families, about people's kids, and then you'll settle it in the ring, and after you'll shake hands, bow to each other, tell Joe Rogan how much you respect the guy, and then that's it. And it's like, nah, everybody is not built that way. But I think a lot of MMA fighters getting arrested lately over losing their fucking minds is probably going to make UFC import some kind of ethics rule, which I'm pretty sure other people want. The NFL probably, I think the NFL does have it. I believe the NBA does too. They're going to have to have some kind of ethics program where, if you do crazy shit outside the cage, you're going to lose a chunk of your purse or lose a contract or something like that, because these guys are really getting out of control. They wilding out. But boxing and MMA on the channel, I don't follow them enough. Like, I watch a good fight if I see it, but I really don't get into the nitty gritty of it. Maul, with Thunder Rosa's comments and angle with Vicky, what are your thoughts on using race to get heat in wrestling? Are things like calling Human Tornado a hard R too far or fair play? I think it depends mostly on what the performer that you're going to be calling names, what they want. I know that Human Tornado, was historically okay with guys using it and kind of told them to do it. And then those videos would come out later with the guy saying it on PWG or something like that, and he would be using the word, and then people will flip out. No, I can't believe my fave used that word. It's like, well, he was told to do it. Like he was given the okay by the guy who was going to be called that. As far as using race in storylines, I'm okay with most things in storyline. As long as it's storyline, as long as both parties agree to it, I don't really see too much of a problem with anything. Race, or illegal immigration or something like that, it's always been a part of there. It's always been there. It just depends on how you choose to handle it, So I'm okay with using just about anything. I haven't come across anything yet that I thought was specifically, or except necrophilia. Like I don't see how we can benefit. What's the money in Triple H having sex with a corpse, or Kane having sex with a corpse? I really don't see the money in that. But having a racist world champion who, pull a Triple H, guys like you, and I mean black guys should never be world champions because yada yada yada. If you tell the story properly, I don't see the problem with that. And I think the big problem with the Triple H promo with Booker T was that Triple H won. That was the problem. Nobody would care that Triple H said that if he lost. But because he won, that promo continues to come up again and again because it wasn't booked properly. And you can do that stuff, you just have to book it properly. But you also have to consider the audience. And I think in modern day, and I was just about to move on to the next question, but I caught myself. In modern day, you probably shouldn't do it. Illegal immigration, race stuff, gender stuff, you probably shouldn't do it. Like you can book a match where, Charlotte challenges a man for the title. She can challenge some guy, Roman Reigns. And he can go on about how, Charlotte's a woman, she ain't got no business challenging him for the title, yada, yada, yada. And you could tell that story, but you'd have to put Charlotte over. You can't have him go and run a misogynist storyline and then he wins. You can't do it. Not today. Can't get away with it today. In the past, sure. But today, no, not at all. DeAndre Dukes has 4 questions. Question 1. What is your favorite promo of all time from any era? One of my favorite promos is Shawn Michaels losing his smile because it made people cry. And I saw grown adult females crying. And he was crying. And it was all bullshit, of course, but it pulled at the heartstrings at exactly the right way. It's one of my favorite promos of all time. WrestleMania 6, the Ultimate Warrior promo, as he is just absolutely batshit insane. As he talks about Hulkamania and the Ultimate Warrior and how he's not looking to destroy Hulkamania. He's looking to meld the two and to take them to places that they shall never have been. I was like, what on earth? I swear I watched WrestleMania 6 recently. I watched that promo 8 times in a row. It was more important to me than the match because it was insane. All right. It was insane. And he was pacing around. He was doing everything that they tell you not to do today. He was using different octaves in his voice. He was turning his back to the camera. It was great. Fantastic. And of course, Randy Savage, the cream of the crop promo. I love that. I loved all of those promos, man. Like those, but that Ultimate Warrior WrestleMania 6 promo is probably my favorite. It's insane, bro. it's nutty. And people are like, I don't understand it. What does he mean? I'm like, I understand completely what he means. If you compare his promo to Hulkamania's promo, and Hulk Hogan's talking about running over the Ultimate Warrior, and Ultimate Warrior's talking about melding the fan bases together, unifying people under him as the top guy. And I actually loved his promo because it told a great story. So probably WrestleMania 6 Ultimate Warrior promo is one of my favorites. But the cream of the crop promo by Randy Savage that's all time right there, dog. That's some all time shit. Ric Flair's he had a promo when he's probably one of his not mid-south, but mid-Atlantic promos is pretty good too. When he told my man, my shoes cost more than your house. That was great shit. 2, what storyline got you so invested only for it to be immediately dropped? Shit. See, that's a hard one because there are so many storylines that especially WWE storylines where things are getting involved and they're getting ready and then they go nowhere. There's just so many throughout history. I think the most recent is the cutting of the top rope for Finn Balor. Cause I just sitting here looking like, okay, clearly Finn Balor lost and now we're going to move him in a direction where somebody screwed him over or whatever. And I was okay with him losing in that way. And then they just kind of was like, well, we're going to go in a different direction. You're kind of like, wait a minute, you can't do that. This is a pay-per-view main event. Roman was beat. What's going on here? And they just dropped it. It's just going nowhere. The GTV segment, I heard that they actually paid that off later on after I stopped watching. They paid off GTV eventually. I think it was Goldust. I think it was always supposed to be Goldust, wasn't it? But it ended up being somebody else or something. I don't know. But probably the most recent one I can think of is the Finn Balor storyline. 3, do you think Vince Russo is needed now more than ever to help WWE or AEW with their angles and storylines? It depends, because the kind of television that Vince Russo was writing doesn't work today. And I know a lot of Vince Russo fans are going to get really upset when I say this, but Vince Russo was ripping off ECW and daytime television a lot. And he was saying himself that he was watching ECW and he was swiping ideas from there. And he was watching a lot of Jerry Springer. And he was swiping ideas from there. Him and his writing partner, they were watching like Jerry Springer and stuff like that. You can't really do that today. For starters, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the salacious material, it doesn't exist today. There's still a lot of sex on TV, but it's in the context of a TV show, not in a trash kind of way, like in the 90s where it was like all trash TV, like, my wife is a stripper having sex with a midget and the midget is gay. You're kind of like, wait a minute, that kind of stuff doesn't work today. And he even took all that shit to WCW, and then he took all that shit to the early days of TNA. Now he did mellow out a little bit later. And, I definitely think that he probably shouldn't be writing the show, but should he have some kind of input, like as a consultant? I wouldn't be too upset about that. Him physically writing the show, probably not. Him as a consultant to say, as an editor of sorts, to say, we need to continue this storyline here. We need to continue this storyline here. We need to do this. We need to do that. Okay. Because there does need to be somebody who is good at writing that can correct these storylines and keep the storylines on track. They need an editor. Vince isn't a good editor. He's a good, this works in our world, this doesn't kind of guy. The writers themselves who write TV shows and stuff like that, they don't know how to write beyond, continuous stories. And then you don't know what Vince is editing it out, what the wrestlers are editing it out. We don't know, but they definitely need somebody there to keep storyline continuity together and to write angles and stuff beyond storylines. Now, if you wanted to have Vince Russo get involved like the mid card, the lower card talent, that would be great, but I wouldn't actually want him literally writing the show, like scripting and formatting the show. Probably not. 4, how would you have booked Matt Hardy upon his return to WWE in 2005? He was red hot, and I think WWE basically shit on it. To be quite honest, you have to realize that the sympathy for him was not legitimate in terms of he had really earned it in the ring. It was more everybody felt bad for him because Edge had fucked him over, and now it was like his time. But I definitely would have, once Edge had got to the next level and became WWE champion, I would have paired him with Matt Hardy pretty much all the time. And I think I'm not sure I would have put Matt Hardy over, which you would have to eventually, in order to fuck over Edge and pay off the storyline. But I'm not sure if I would have kept Matt Hardy as being the guy, but he certainly would have been champion before Jeff, and which, wouldn't have been Jeff's fault. Well, it would have been Jeff's fault because he was on drugs, but it would have been, making sure that the storyline made sense in terms of Edge ruthlessly, backstabbing his friend and his friend getting revenge. That's kind of how I would have booked it. They booked it pretty well, except for Matt lost the first match, like he just straight up lost the first match. Well, I think I don't think he actually got beat, but I think think the SummerSlam match that they built up to, it ended in a no contest because I think Matt got busted open and then Edge kept kicking him in the head. But the feud, I think, was fine. I think the feud was good. I just don't think that it paid off the right way in terms of Matt never really being able to rip the title from Edge and actually hurting Edge in a way that makes sense and provided closure to the audience. Like you could have had Edge as a champion, go through the John Cena stuff, and then Matt Hardy reappears. And then you could have Matt beat him for the belt. And even if you just want to give it back to Edge a couple of weeks later at a pay-per-view or something like that, maybe did that as the TLC match in Toronto is when you put the belt back on Edge. That would have been fine. I didn't like it. But it's not like Matt gained this following from cutting great promos and having great matches. So I don't know, but I definitely would have done it, in a way where Matt was kept in the loop because you just got to have recurring villains. The TLD, have you ever thought about a podcast, maybe a co-host? There's a YouTuber named Millennial Smart who has a similar and different viewpoints as you. I think it would be a good discussion content. I considered doing a podcast. I just don't have the time. Usually when I want to do, videos or a podcast or something like that, I would be absolutely dead tired and never get anything done. So, which is part of the reason why this Q&A is going to be late. But I like Millennial Smart. I watch quite a few of his videos. I don't watch them all. Usually I look at the topic first, and then if I agree with them, I'll go in there. But we'll listen to it. And this idea has been pitched to me several times by people on the channel, and I'm okay with it. But it's all about timing and whether he will want to do it. And that's the only thing I got. If I could find the time, and if he's interested, and maybe we could even pump out at least one show, just to see how it works. Let's see. Alto Johnson, will you be interested in seeing the Control Your Narrative promotion, and what do you think of it? I like the Control Your Narrative show, the one that I did watch, because it was an interesting take on wrestling. Now, as an entire promotion, it seems like they're going to take that same concept and turn it into a wrestling promotion. Now, the concept of the show that I watched was you would get a wrestler. Let's say it would be Adam Scherr, the Titan. And you would basically tell his story, that he was a guy, is he who he is, or is he what somebody made him? And that will be the story of the match. When he was fighting EC3, EC3 was beating him down and almost killed him. And the story was that, Braun Strowman had to die so that the Titan can be reborn. And I loved that. I thought that was great. How can you make that an entire promotion, though? I don't know. From everything that I've heard about it, and I've been leery of doing videos about it because I've been following Braun Strowman's Twitter rants, and I've been following EC3 and all the stuff that they've been doing. And I've been looking at this, and it's all been about the political aspects of it and whether it's political or not and what they're going to be doing. I haven't heard a lot about the actual who is going to be in the promotion and what kind of product is this going to be. Is it going to be straight wrestling, or is it going to be fight scenes, which is essentially what it was when I watched the Control Your Narrative fight pay-per-views. They were essentially fight scenes. They weren't really traditional wrestling matches, It felt more like clips of a match, kind of like Lucha Underground. Now, if it's going to be a little bit like Lucha Underground, where we follow the story of a wrestler throughout an episode, that may be fun. Of course, once you tell that wrestler's story, what do you do with them? That would make it a not really traditional wrestling promotion. So it depends on how they choose to do it. I want to watch episode 1 first before I really give a hard opinion on it. So I want to give them an opportunity to at least produce one full episode of their product as they want it to be, and not say, okay, this is what they've done in the past, because we don't know if they're going to continue doing it that way. So we'll see. But from the people that I see that are involved, I don't like EC3. I was kind of a fan of Braun Strowman, but their behavior has been very weird. Like the behavior of everybody involved, including the wrestling journalists who are attacking them, has all been very weird. But I'm interested in at least in episode 1 and maybe episode 2 to see what kind of product they're going to put out there. If it's going to be a little bit more like Lucha Underground, then I may be interested. If it's going to be straight wrestling, I don't know about that because I don't know who's going to be involved in that at that point. Alex Coquito, are you going to give Blackpool Combat Club a chance? If yes, pick 2 men and 1 female to complete it. I already liked the Blackpool Combat Club, and I liked it. I liked it a lot more before Wheeler Yuta got involved. Wheeler Yuta, no, he sucks. Now, 1 female that I would put in the Blackpool Combat Club would be legit Layla Hirsch. I think that she is in terms of what they want the Blackpool Combat Club to be. I think she's the best female option that they have on the roster. I know they probably put Marina Shafir in it, and she's awful. But Layla Hirsch is good. So Layla Hirsch would be my female choice. 2 males, I don't know. I'm guessing they will want to put younger guys in it. And I think maybe Daniel Garcia probably would have fit the Blackpool Combat Club a lot more than he fits the Jericho Appreciation Society. So I probably would have put Daniel Garcia in it, and I probably would have done something else with Wheeler Yuta. I actually can stand Daniel Garcia more than Wheeler Yuta. I cannot stand Wheeler Yuta. Also, Josh Woods. If Josh Woods was under contract to AEW, which I'm not sure that he is, he was on the Ring of Honor contract. He would be perfect for the Blackpool Combat Club too. Cause he's a guy who has an MMA background, has a wrestling background. He's big, he's tough. I definitely can see him being in the Blackpool Combat Club. Mr. VXG, can you please do an impression of Andrade trying to recruit Keith Lee to his stable? I think I did this one already. I did this one in the March 2020 Q&A, and we did that already. Alto Johnson, second question. With Natalya down at NXT working with Cora Jade like she did with Charlotte, wondering any potential we may get NXT 2.0 4 horsewomen. Who would you pick? Lord have mercy. Of all of the women that are currently in NXT, as far as the 4 horsewomen are concerned, let's see. Well, the 4 horsewomen were a very unique group because Charlotte and Sasha jumped off the page at you. Bayley and Becky were in the group, but they were kind of way on the back burner. Charlotte obviously was going to make it because she was Rick's daughter. And Sasha Banks, nobody knew she was Snoop Dogg's cousin until she kept talking about it. But she just looked like it. She just looked like a star and how she presented the boss as a character. Now, if you look at NXT today, there's not that many women who literally jump off the page. You could say Tiffany Stratton and Nikita Lyons are 2 of them. Those are 2 of the women they definitely should be keeping an eye on and keeping their finger on. They're very young, and they are going to eventually come around. Cora Jade is definitely one of them that they want to make it. She needs more of an attitude. She definitely needs to learn how to fucking sell. She needs more of a personality. I can see her being sort of the Bayley of the group. So I can see Cora Jade being the sentimental fan favorite until she gets to the main roster and everybody boos her cuteness. Like Bayley was cute, but as soon as she got to the main roster, everybody was like, ugh, she's cute. Get her out of here. Now they need a Becky Lynch, sort of a wild card, somebody who everybody sees something in, but nobody has been able to bring that out yet. And, that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one because Nikita Lyons is definitely going to be one of their top girls, and they see how everybody is behind her. You feel me? Everybody's getting behind it, So, but Tiffany Stratton is, they put a lot of effort into building her, and then people kind of started shitting on her. But I think that she's got something, in terms of her persona. I think she's a little handicapped by the character, kind of how Lacey Evans was, but she could play, sort of the Sasha Banks role, because Sasha Banks' character was very loud. But she has to get better in the ring, of course. Now we need that Becky Lynch sort of wild card type of character, and that's going to be the hard one to get. because now we're looking at a situation where it could be maybe Kaylee Ray, because Kaylee Ray has been somebody that's been on the roster for a long time. She's done nothing. We don't really know who she is. She's got that accent. We don't know that much about her, so we're looking at maybe the main roster WWE grabbing hold of her and saying, all right, we need to do something with you. And either that or you're going to get cut. It's one or the other. And people seem to like her, but we don't really know why. So maybe Kaylee Ray would probably be the fourth one that I could think of. That doesn't sound very good, though. Tiffany Stratton, Nikita Lyons, Cora Jade, and Kaylee Ray, it doesn't necessarily sound very promising. But at least 3 of those chicks are under the age of 30, for sure. D-Mac, how would you assess the current AEW slate of champions? Poorly. I don't like any of them, with the exception of Thunder Rosa. And Jade Cargill should be the champion, but I'm not a huge fan of Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill is just the right person in the right place at the right time. It's just right for her to be the champion. I'm not a fan, though. Thunder Rosa, I am legitimately a fan, and she deserves to be where she is. They're booking her like shit, though. Scorpio Sky sucks. Him being the champion is mostly just so people can stop saying AEW is racist. Jurassic Express, I'm a fan of Jungle Boy. I hate Luchasaurus. I don't see why they're still the tag team champions. They seem to be in tag team championship limbo, where they just kind of have matches. They're not in a feud. They just kind of have matches, and then that's just kind of it. That's what they do. And Hangman Page he is what he is, Like, if the booking of Hangman Page on a more charismatic guy probably would send him to the moon. But because he doesn't really have the charisma, and we see him constantly as a guy who's punching up, as Hangman Page is consistently wrestling guys that we think probably should be world champion over him. Like he's wrestling Danielson. It was like, okay, well, there's no reason why Danielson shouldn't be the champion. What's the reason why he shouldn't be? Well, because they want to give Page a title run. It's like, okay, whatever. And now he's wrestling Adam Cole. Currently, this is being recorded before Rampage, and Rampage is live, so the title could change. And I'm looking at it, and everybody's like, okay, well, Adam Cole's far more over than Adam Page, and he's more charismatic and more likely to be a world champion than Adam Page. But it seems like they're not interested in making Adam Cole the champion. So I'm not really a big fan of Hangman Page or Jungle Boy, or Scorpio Sky. They're male champions, and this, of course, being recorded also before Battle of the Belts. So even if they put the belt back on Sammy Guevara, I'm not a fan of Sammy Guevara either. So I don't care about AEW's champions, and that's part of the reason why I have such a tough time with the show. And I'm not going to count the Ring of Honor titles. I'm not even going to count those. Alto Johnson, another question. 1, have you ever heard of Slum Village? Of course, I'm from Detroit. I actually used to hang out around Conant Gardens, where Slum Village was put together. I think Jay Dilla used to live in Conant Gardens. It's near Hamtramck, Detroit. But yeah, I liked all of their albums. Get This Money is one of my favorite songs. If I could use that, or use like a Jay Dilla beat for the intros and outros without, getting slapped with copyright, which is what used to happen. I used to use Dilla beats all the time. And then I got hit with copyright. So I was like, ugh. Can't do that anymore. 2, what are your top 5 independent, underground, and non-mainstream rappers or musicians? Well, that's a good question. Slum Village would definitely be on there, but it would have been Slum Village of earlier years. As guys started to die off, I think like 2 members of Slum Village died off, but Elzai is one of my favorites. I was always a big fan of Elzai, and his album. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember what it was. It had The Leak on it, and it had Fire on it. It was produced by Black Milk, and Black Milk is another one of my favorites. Black Milk is another local Detroit rapper / producer. I like him more as a producer than a rapper. But Black Milk, Elzai is 2 of them. I used to be a big fan of Talib Kweli. Not so much anymore, but I did like his music, especially when he was doing his stuff with High Tech. So I guess you could put Talib Kweli on there. I don't know if Common counts. I guess Common mainstream. Some people would say so. I think Common would probably say he's not. But so he did a couple of albums that were produced by Kanye West. So maybe we wouldn't say that he's underground. But I was a bigger fan of J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar when they were underground than their mainstream stuff. I'm not really a huge fan of that. Apollo Brown is fantastic as a producer. Apollo Brown produced, I think, a couple of entire records for Ghostface Killah. He did the soundtrack 12 Ways to Die for the comic book series that Ghostface did. And Apollo Brown is tremendous. He's also from Detroit. All three of these guys are from Detroit, by the way. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, you hate Detroit rappers." I kind of do, but Apollo Brown's from Detroit, Elzai's from Detroit, and who else did I say? I forgot already. Black Milk is also from Detroit, but those will be three. I got two more. Little Brother. Little Brother broke up several years ago, but Fonte, he does a funk band. I forget what it's called, but he's great in that. But Little Brother is fantastic. Ninth Wonder is one of my favorite producers of all time. Ninth Wonder is tremendous. Now, he does probably take a little bit of credit for stuff that Crisis did, but okay. Ninth Wonder is great. And Little Brother is fantastic. You can go listen to that album. It is the first two. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head while thinking of other things at the same time. The Minstrel Show is probably the best album that they've done. But I was also a fan of Get Back, which is their third and final album for Little Brother. I'm a big fan of them. Big fan of Fonte's band too. They're pretty good. I also liked Zion I. They also broke up a long time ago. I was a big fan of Zion I. Been trying to get people to listen to them. Also, I was a fan of Dead Prez during my more socialist days. You know, my Black Power days, I was more of a fan of Dead Prez. And I still kind of like some of the stuff that they did. It just doesn't resonate with me how it used to. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of like the backpack rap. You know, I kind of fell off of it a long time ago because I don't listen to rap that much anymore. But backpack rap was like my shit. Like I would definitely sit down and listen to, you know, some of the boom bap kind of stuff. You know, I love that shit. Right, now we got another question. Yeah, let's see. The damn thing keep rolling along. What wrestling theme song, this is from Andres, what wrestling theme song do you love that everyone hates? And what theme do you hate that everyone loves? I don't like the Rock's theme song. I don't like the guitar version. I like the Nation version. Like when he first left the Nation, rather. I like that version, the Attitude Era version. Like when they started doing the electric guitar version of the Rock's theme, I wasn't really a big fan of that. It's okay though, you know. It's all right. I know a lot of people do like that theme. I was never really a big fan of it. As far as theme songs that I love that everybody seems to hate, I don't know. Because I don't know what, I usually have fairly good taste in theme songs. It's just, I don't know if other people actually like it or not. But, so I can't really answer that question. I'm not entirely sure. But, that electric guitar into the Rock's theme, wasn't a fan of that. Park and Hunt has 5 questions. Question 1. What do you consider some of the best and worst WrestleManias? I think some of the better WrestleManias were in the 20s. So WrestleMania 21, WrestleMania 22, WrestleMania 23 are some of the best. Some of the worst WrestleManias were in the 30s. Because the show just got so long. And it became, just for the fact that the show is too long, the shows just became down in quality because the shows were so long. The earlier WrestleManias aren't very good either. You know, the WrestleMania up till 4, you know, it was a big event, but it just kind of felt like, and 4 originally isn't all that good. Because it really started getting good at 5. Like 5 and 6 kicked ass. 7, not so much. 8, 9 was the shits. 10 was mediocre as hell. It was all about Bret Hart. 11, also the shits. 12, pretty good, not the best. Obviously, you had the Iron Man match on there. It ate up so much of the show. And some people don't like, if you don't like the Iron Man match, you probably don't like that show. But my favorite match on that show was Diesel and Undertaker. So I don't really care about the Iron Man match, even though I was gripped by it as a kid. And would continue to be a fan of it until I decided that wrestling matches over 40 minutes were absolutely offensive. And I was glad that I hit that mark when I came to a certain point in time. I was kind of like, I will not watch a match that's an hour. I will not watch it. No, I won't do it. But when I was a kid, I was captivated by the Bret Hart Shawn Michaels match. It was fantastic to me, and I still think it's a great match. I just won't watch it because it's an hour. 13 was pretty good. 14 was good. 15 was 15 and 16. I know some people just gonna be like, "What? Those are Attitude Era WrestleManias." I'm like, yeah, 15. Great main event. The rest of the show, 16, okay, was pretty good. It was better than 15, but 17, of course, is great. 18 is great. 19, great. 20, the execution of 20 wasn't very good. So that's kind of how I think of all the WrestleManias. 2, have you considered doing a live stream for your channel? I will be doing live streams eventually. It's just going to be about time. It's another one of those time things. 3, how would you rank the wrestling shows you've attended from worst to best? The best would be WrestleMania 23. I was in the building for that joint. Man, that joint was, whoo boy. That joint is phenomenal. The worst would probably be the house show that I went to in 1996, mainly because I don't remember that much of it. I was 12, so I didn't remember that much of the show. I do remember Ahmed Johnson coming through and it being very dark in the building. It was very, very dark, and that was probably the worst thing about it, is it was dark as hell in there. 4, what do you think you want to do when you hit a channel subscribers milestone? I don't know. I thought about a lot of different things to change it, to take the channel in a different direction. I do kind of want to evolve the channel over time. But I haven't really put that much thought into subscriber milestones as much as just building the channel and making content that people actually want to hear and care about. That's kind of like when I stopped trying to be fancy, the channel grew a lot faster, because I went into, let's just stop trying to beat people over the head with thought bubbles and actually, let's do some fun shit. Let's do impressions. Let's talk about mythology. Let's talk about fun shit, the fun shit around wrestling, rather than how much I hate everybody. And that's kind of how I found it. It's also made the doing content more fun, because I can sit here and grumble about wrestling all day because none of it is to my taste or to my standards, but I just accept it as, when I say something is great, I mean great for this time, and it's, didn't waste my time, or I didn't think that it was awful or whatever. So that's just kind of how I just moved more towards making content that is more fun, and I want to continue to do that. 5, which wrestler do you think will get axed in the next wave of releases? Oh my goodness. If you've been off TV for more than 90 days, you probably already got fired. Now, there are some people who have been on TV recently that are probably going to get axed. And it's April, as I record this, April 15th as I record this. So it's tax day. And tax day usually means axe day in WWE. And what we're looking at here is a situation where they want to freshen up the roster. If nothing else, that's really what the cuts are all about. The cuts are, a lot of it is about keeping the roster fresh. And so we want to look at people who've been around for a long time and haven't really gotten much anything done. But you also have people who might have heat. So somebody that might have some heat that most people consider a problem. I think I heard Billy Body say that Shotzi has heat, and that might be true. I don't know how true it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if she got cut for that reason, but I'm a big fan of Shotzi, and I don't want to see her get cut. I don't want to see her, lose it. I think that she has something. And I think she actually has charisma that people would actually pay to see her, But I think Xia Li is definitely on the chopping block. Maybe Aaliyah, because she's been sort of the Shawn Spears of the WWE in terms of the women. And she was on the roster for so long, and then they brought her up and then forgot she even existed. So, Xia Li and Aaliyah, definitely, they can be replaced pretty easily. Unfortunately, they put so much time and effort into Xia Li. I would actually be disappointed if she got cut. Aaliyah, not so much. I mean, the thing with Natalya just wasn't going to get over. Wouldn't be surprised if they cut Shayna Baszler. Wouldn't be surprised if they cut Ricochet after he drops the Intercontinental title eventually. Wouldn't be surprised if they cut Shanky. Wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of, I don't think they'll touch the 24/7 crew, despite the fact that I don't really see the point in them. They found a way that they could actually be worthwhile on the roster. But Drew Gulak is one of those people that I definitely think would probably get cut. But I also think, it depends on how much they get paid. Are these people making a lot of money? So I don't know. Like, they've already gotten the roster so thin that they really don't need to do cuts. But I think that there still probably will be cuts. Just like a lot of them will probably be NXT cuts. Let's see. What else we got here? Which Mr. VXG, which living celebrity or pro athlete would you like to see have a WrestleMania moment? Next. Conor McGregor said he wants to do something. I say let him do it. What do we do with Conor McGregor? I'm not sure. I think maybe a mixed tag match with Conor McGregor and Becky Lynch versus two American guys would be pretty cool. I don't know who that would be. As far as football players, I don't know if there's how many football players could really get in there and be as good as like a Pat McAfee or Kevin Green was actually pretty good in his time too. NBA players, I really couldn't tell you. But so since I don't know that many, I just think Conor McGregor would probably be like the one guy, since he put it out there, that he wanted to do it. And I think that he would definitely, Kobe Covington also wants to do it. So I definitely think they probably, Vince would probably call one of them, probably be Conor McGregor. And since Vince is cool with Dana White, they'll probably get it done where Conor McGregor could do something at WrestleMania. Conor McGregor versus Brock Lesnar? Hope not. I hope not. Another Mr. VXG question. What is your favorite WrestleMania entrance? The entrance where Undertaker has the people reaching up at him. Like the lost souls. I forget which one it is. Like which event it is. But the one where it's a simple entrance where he's in silhouette and all the hands are reaching up. It's like, that's fantastic. And it encapsulates perfectly what the Undertaker is as far as presentation is concerned. That's my favorite WrestleMania entrance. WG Phil. One, he has 4 questions. Favorite WrestleMania stage, not the arena it was hosted, but the actual stage, ramp, and ring. 33, I think, really had the roller coaster. It was so complicated. Like that roller coaster thing is so complicated. I was surprised they didn't even put that there. Like I was like, if that thing collapses or something like that, it could be really fucked up. So that's probably my favorite. And because of how complicated it looks, and it had the globe and everything, it was pretty cool. 2, favorite WrestleMania entrance, special entrance like John Cena's 22 Mafia entrance or Conan. Oh yeah, I get it. I just said it. It was the Undertaker's entrance at I forget which WrestleMania it is, where he's reaching up. I actually love Shawn Michaels zipline entrance. I thought it was pretty cool. I like that. I thought it was very cool, and it's I think that one kind of created the special entrance for WrestleMania gimmick. I think that one kind of introduced that concept, even though they kind of went away from it for several years. The Conan the Barbarian Triple H entrance isn't my favorite one, though. Not from him. I like the one where Stephanie does the introduction first, and she's like the Wicked Witch, and she's standing on this thing, and she's yelling at the audience and everything. I thought that was really great, and she really bigs Triple H up. It got a little bit simple after that, as Triple H started just riding motorcycles to the ring. 3, top 4 WrestleMania Scott Hall attires. Oh shit, the gold, he did the gold on gold joint. I thought that was pretty sweet. The purple is iconic. He wore the purple ones quite a few times. I like the red ones were okay, but the gold is the shit. I think he probably wore that. I want to say Royal Rumble against Brett, but the purple ones are more iconic, and he wore those pretty often. The straight up black and gold ones were pretty sweet too, and I think that was it. Not the long pants, not the long boys. The long boys sucked. 4, a voice impression scene where Keith Lee, Pete Dunne, Cody, and Kenny are in an AA meeting for their accents with a guest of Elmer Hager, with the ring announcer being the counselor. Is it the Tony Schiavone voice? All right, so we got a scene here. So we got Keith Lee, Pete Dunne, Cody, and Kenny. All right. Okay, so so we got Lispers Anonymous. That's what we're gonna have to call this joint. We got Lispers Anonymous. So you gotta it's gotta go like, we're all gathered here today for Lispers Anonymous. First, we have you. Would you like to stand up first, sir? Of course. I will always set the standard. Guys, my name is Cody Rhodes. I am the American Nightmare, the son of a plumber, the grandson of a plumber. The American Dream is my dad. All of you guys know the American Dream. Yes, give it up for the American Dream. Absolutely, he is a legend. He's my hero. He's my hero. And I'm Cody Rhodes, and I speak with a lisp. And I've been dealing with this for a long time, and it's overwhelming. And I just hope Little Liberty does not have a. I just hope she doesn't speak like how I speak, because people make fun of me for having a lisp, and I can't help it, and there's nothing I can do about that. But there is something I can do for America. And okay. All right, Cody. Thank you very much, Cody. I think we can move on now. Mr. What's your name again? I am Mr. Lee. Mr. Keith Lee. Now, sir, I do not speak with a lisp, so I do not understand why I am in this conversation. But, Mr. Cody Rhodes, I am touched by your willingness to open yourself up, to be vulnerable in this space. And Mr. Rhodes, I am a huge fan of your father, the American Dream. I once met the American Dream, and I have to say his glow warmed my face, and I understand why you feel the way that you do about your father. I feel similarly about my grandma, and these things are very important to us as people. And in our world today, and our pro wrestling space, how people try to change us and try to make us something we are not. I am very, very, very humbled in being in your presence, sir. Mr. Lee, I completely understand. Thank you so much for your kind words about my dad. And I love you. And can we fist bump? Yeah, you have a massive fist. Thank you, sir. It's funny how Keith Lee should mention that people are trying to change us. I don't have a lisp either, but they named me Butch. And I thought that's what this was about. I thought this was the room where WWE changed us all into something silly. They put me in suspenders, and they put me behind Sheamus, who was basically a big cartoon character. I was the baddest man in NXT. And now I am an angry midget on the main roster. It's not fair. It is not funny. It's not funny. It wasn't quite Stardust. Whoa. We don't mention Stardust here. We have to understand that when I agreed to do this, that we would not speak about Stardust. Isn't that what I agreed to? Yes. I remember that on the forums, that we would not mention the words star and dust at the same time. We can talk about stars and we can talk about dust, but we can never talk about Stardust. We must never have that conversation. We must never speak upon Stardust. I want to just make sure everyone recognizes that the real Americans was good creative. It was good creative. Not like what Jericho says. It was good creative. Now, Jericho, I will get your coffee momentarily. Mr. Hager, would you please sit down? You do not have to get Mr. Jericho coffee. He is not your boss. He is not your master. He is trying to change you, sir. You were an all-American wrestler. You were an MMA fighter. You were a tough gentleman. Mr. Lee, stop it. Enough. I don't understand where we are in this conversation. I thought we were Lispers Anonymous. And then we turned this into, WWE changed me into, I was the baddest man in NXT. It's like, I get it, Pete. Relax. Please relax. Moon pie face. Please relax. Can we figure out what we are in this room for? Can somebody explain to me why we are in this room? I was told there'd be titties and cookies. I don't know. Just doing random stuff. All right. So I hope that was good enough. Let's see. DMAC, what do you think of the idea of AEW rotating their talent as a response to fans who criticize the company for not featuring certain talents or having them occupy dark elevation? AEW rotating talent is probably smart. The problem is that when they rotate a talent out, they're gone too long. Like, sometimes a talent is gone for 4 months. I think Ruby Soho has been off TV. What did AEW Botches said? She's been off TV for over 120 days. That's 4 months. She hasn't been on TV for 4 months. How can she stay over if she's not on TV for 4 months? I don't know. Malachi Black, he's been rotated out of sort of the spotlight, but he hasn't really been firmly established. So you have a lot of people who are kind of like, okay, where did this guy go? He's where did Miro? Where did he go? What is he doing? And you kind of have to start over once they've been gone for so long. And unless you have an injury explanation, then you kind of have to ask the question, where the hell are they going? And it says, as a follow-up, is there a way to maintain interest in fringe wrestlers while using the rotation method? And what do you make of this idea that critiques of the AEW style are brainwashed by WWE style? I think that the final question is just a way of hand waving what AEW does. You're supposed to just accept what they do because it's not WWE doing it, and that's ridiculous. But the best way to utilize talent is to keep them visible, but not the focus. Like, I think when you look at the Blackpool Combat Club, it puts Danielson and Moxley in something, but they're not in the center of anything. They're kind of off to the side. They're doing their own little side missions at this point in time, but they're still visible and they're still wrestling on the show. But they're not the focal point as they had been before. So we kind of moved them to the side. We're going to use them to help other people. That's perfectly fine. I'm all right with Malachi Black being the voice of the House of Black, and then Buddy Matthews or whatever working the matches, or Brody King working matches. I'm okay with that. Keep him outside the ring because, we've seen him a lot, but you don't have anything for him to do. But you can use him as a lightning rod for his boys. And they could be a tag team. Or they could be, you could have Brody King as a singles competitor or Buddy Matthews as a singles competitor. And you could tell stories within that aspect without Malachi Black literally getting in the ring. That's the point of a stable. So that you can utilize characters in a lot of different ways without taking people off TV completely. When somebody is a solo act, and I think that's where you need to have a tag team division. This is why I think that AEW should have had a women's tag team division rather than a secondary women's title. A women's tag team division would have allowed them to utilize somebody like Ruby Soho as a non-focal point, women's wrestler, and put her in a tag team with somebody else for at least for a little while, and could have gave her something to do. And it also would have given them an opportunity to focus on the women a little bit more. And I think kind of that way of the House of Black not being used as a tag team and not being used at all, it's either like it's a trio, so it's nothing. It's like, no, you can use them as individuals. You can use them as a tag team. There's a lot of different ways to do it. They're doing it with the Blackpool Combat Club, where, they're utilizing Moxley and Danielson as a tag team. They're utilizing them as a six-man. They're using them as singles competitors. That's the best way to do it. And you can rotate talent where these people are still there, but maybe they don't wrestle every month. Maybe they wrestle every week. Maybe they just are outside the ring as coaches sometimes. Like maybe Danielson is just in Wheeler Yuta's corner for 2 or 3 weeks, wiping him down and rubbing his shoulders or whatever. And then, Danielson wrestles, and then, Wheeler Yuta's doing the same thing for him. Maybe that's how we utilize talent. But the problem is going to be you have to put every talent in a tag team or a stable at that point. The roster is just too big. You have a lot of people who are being lost in the shuffle. And that's definitely because AEW feel like they have to have everybody. And you can't focus on everybody. It's just not feasible. It doesn't make sense. All right. Black Saiyan 97. He got 3 questions. Question 1. Worst wrestling pay-per-view you have ever seen? December to Dismember, ECW. It was so bad, I bought the DVD. That's how bad it was. Because I heard it was awful. And I was like, it can't possibly be that bad. And then I went and bought the DVD, maybe a month or 2 after it came out. And I remember sitting there watching, and I was like, holy shit. It's not like the matches were terrible, it was just painfully boring. I'm just talking like the first match was great because it was the Eminem versus the Hardys, and the main event was fine. It was just fine. They had changed everything up. They took Sabu out of there. Punk was supposed to win it, and then Heyman got axed. I think right before the show aired, because he came up with this stupid idea of CM Punk beating everybody, including Lashley and Big Show. And I'm like, wait a minute, now come on. So that was definitely probably the worst pay-per-view, especially off the top of my head that I can remember. It was most definitely December to Dismember, the ECW pay-per-view. It was terrible. So Black Sand 97 had a second question. Do you think old school 80s and 90s anime and manga are better than current anime and manga? I think it hits harder for sure because it's different. You know, there was less censorship in the 80s and 90s. When I first saw Ninja Scroll, I was like, holy shit. When I first saw Akira, I was like mind blown. Fist of the North Star, I was like, whoa, it's people exploding. What is going on here? So like those three, and then I think Wicked City, I think I saw, where I never seen animation that featured a lot of sex and excessive violence until I saw Ninja Scroll. And I started seeing people get like their heads cut off and everything. I was like, wow. So we haven't gone back to that. I haven't seen anything in modern anime that is as raw as some of the stuff from the 80s. You know, like a lot of that 80s anime is raw. Like the manga, I'm not too sure because I haven't read like a lot of old manga, but a lot of the older anime, man, that shit raw. In the 90s, it gets a little bit more like today, you know, even though today is based heavily on what was going on in the 90s, but you know, some of the Gundams and stuff like that, like those anime, that stuff used to be pretty good. You know, as far as storylines are concerned, it was a little repetitive as far as Gundam is concerned, but I actually kind of liked Gundam. I couldn't tell you the series apart because like they're so similar to me, but I was a big fan of Gundam when they used to show it on Toonami and stuff like that. But I definitely go back and watch old 80s and 90s like Bubblegum Crisis and stuff like that, and I definitely find myself getting into that, and I'll finish that whole series. And I'll watch like a couple of episodes of like I've been trying to watch Fire Force on the anime. I can't keep up with it. Like it started out pretty cool, and then it got okay, and then I just kind of like trailed off. And I love Attack on Titan, but I trailed off. But I don't really trail off if I really get into one of those 80s or 90s anime. I usually stick with it, like Lupin or something like that. Usually I can just sit there and watch that. And I've been trying to find, I think they just released a Lupin anthology set. I'm going to end up having to get that eventually. 3, worst wrestling theme songs, current and old. I think today's generic theme songs are the worst, and I really don't see the point in trying to single out one of them. You know, like a lot of them are so bad that they're just generic and they mean nothing and they go nowhere. Even a song that people think is not very good, it's a man, such a man. It's iconic because at least it stands out, you know. But some of that generic shit, like from the I was about to say New Generation era, but not New Generation, but from the Ruthless Aggression, is pretty bad too. Like I think John Cena, or was it B2 when he was teaming up with Bull Buchanan, their theme song was pretty bad. The theme song he had before Dr. Thugonomics, that theme, that was pretty bad. But a lot of the themes today are pretty bad. Like they changed Shayna Baszler's theme into whatever it is now. It's not good. You know, it's the shits. It's just really bad. But a lot of these generic themes today are just not very good. And it's sad. Let's see. We got Jackson Rick. He's got 3 questions, I think. 1, how would you book AEW Rampage? I would book it like Dynamite. I wouldn't treat it like a B show. I mean, occasionally you will have to have B-level performers on the show, of course. They're trying to treat it like a brand split in a way without, you know, realizing that they're not over enough to have a brand split. Like AEW is not popular enough to have a brand split. And then if you're going to have a brand split, then you should put some bigger stars on the show. And I mean focused on the show. And I definitely mean they need to fix Dynamite. They need to put stories on both shows. Or, you know, tell a story throughout the show. Keep people engaged. You know, they're not doing that right now. Hired and fired AEW roster. I don't want to go through the entire roster. Let's just say of the people that I see, they fired or are going to release a lot of the folks that I don't think are necessary anymore. Like a lot of the dark elevation level performers, you know, the twerkers and, you know, Chaos Project. Yeah, you can get rid of all of those fucking guys. Nobody's going to miss Chaos Project. You know, nobody cares about those guys. You know, Fuego del Sol. If you fire him, who's going to miss him? Really? You know, but you need lower card guys too, because you need people to do jobs. You know, you need somebody to go in there and get beat up and get pinned, you know, so I wouldn't fire all of them. I would fire Luther because he fucking sucks and there's no real point to him. He's not even really good at selling. If he can't go in the ring and take a spin kick from Malachi Black and make it look good, there's no point for him being there. At least Fuego del Sol can do that. At least Serpentico can do that. Now, I don't even trust Luther to be able to do that. So I don't see the point in him being there. But there's a lot of guys I'll probably cut. If I went through the entire roster and probably was like, cut. But they've also seems to be making the hard decision of getting rid of some of those guys. Jackson Rick's third question. Do you think fans don't wait patience anymore and don't want unpredictable stuff in wrestling? Like say if Cody don't face Seth and Seth versus a legend, people will call it whack. I watched Russo's show, and he said that back then people want unexpected, unpredictable in pro wrestling, but the social media will ruin it. Do you agree? Thanks. I think if it was somebody else, let's say Seth Rollins was not wrestling Cody. Instead, he was wrestling Goldberg. I think people would have been pissed. Not because, you know, they didn't get Cody, but because it was Goldberg. And people would kind of be like, I'm sick of Goldberg. If it was Psycho Sid, people would have been like, holy shit, because they would have been completely unexpected and completely unpredictable. So people do like unexpected and unpredictable. But in a match, there's literally a 50-50 chance of anybody winning. You know, of course, if you're going to bet, it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to look at wins and losses, what's the story, yada, yada, yada. But in a match where Cody is going to be Seth Rollins versus anybody on planet Earth, you could literally pick anybody, and it could have been anybody, and you picked this guy. Like, okay, come on. If it was The Rock, people would have been like, holy shit, it's The Rock. You know, if it had been, you know, somebody like that, then it would have been an unexpected and a surprise. I think that sometimes there also is genuine joy in giving people something that they expect. You know, there's two ways in order to make people happy. Doing the unexpected, doing the expected to a next level. And I think that's what WWE did. Like, you know, you can do the expected. Cody, you're going to bring Cody Rhodes in. But they didn't bring Cody Rhodes in as dashing Cody Rhodes. They didn't bring Cody Rhodes back as that version of Cody Rhodes. They ported AEW's Cody Rhodes into WWE. Theme song, entrance, everything. And people were like, okay, they went above and beyond. They spent money on this thing. You know, and that's really what made people really appreciate it. So it's not necessarily that, okay, it was expected. Like you expect to get people stuff for their birthday. So you might expect, a gift for their birthday, but you can still go above and beyond, you know, and go beyond their expectations. Like they expect something for Christmas, but they don't expect this, you know? So that's, I think what they did with Cody, I think that's what they did is they went above and beyond in terms of how they presented him. And I think people really appreciated that. And they would not have appreciated it so much if it was a one night Psycho Sid, one night Rock return. It would have been great for that night, but it probably wouldn't have had the lasting positive effect that Cody Rhodes coming back has had so far. Darren Miles has another question. If you own a wrestling promotion, would you rather have AEW's audience or ECW's audience? That's a good question. Because I think there's a lot of overlap between those two audiences, but I think the AEW audience are massive dorks. I mean, I'm talking like massive, embarrassing dorks. The ECW audience at least felt like guys who might get laid at some point. Like the AEW audience, I'm looking at a lot of those guys, even if they got kids with them. I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure. You know, like in order to, the ECW audience was harder of the hardcores. You know, they didn't drink beer ironically. They drank beer. You know, like these guys today kind of, you know, they have ironic beers, but they have like pronouns in their bio and shit like that. And it's like, come on, man. Nah. So I maybe would have the ECW audience. They're a little bit more honest too. Like the AEW audience isn't as honest as the ECW audience was. And I think I would want to have that. I want to have a lot more of an honest audience. Ooh boy, we're in the home stretch here now. Let's see. Keith Bearcat Lee. Does my cutie new era legend Keith Bearcat Lee have a chance at becoming AEW World Champion? Not at this rate. He probably should be in the conversation, but it seems like he's off the rails now. Him losing the Powerhouse Hobbs wasn't that big of a deal. But they're already 50-50 booking him, and they're not booking him as a top star, you know. And he should have trucked Hobbs, Starks, and the rest of these guys if he was going to be on the path to becoming world champion, which I think is what everybody kind of wanted, because everybody wanted him to be WWE champion. You know, so I think that if you put him in position, people would definitely prefer for him to be the AEW world champion. Now, not anytime soon, I will say that. I won't say never, but I won't say anytime soon. Alto Johnson, who was the best AEW champion? Hangman Page, Chris Jericho, Moxley, or Omega? I think AEW will probably tell you it was Kenny Omega due to the Forbidden Door stuff and the length of his run. For me, I personally thought Jon Moxley set the standard for the company a lot better. Even though his title reign was kind of weak, I think that the validation that they got with him being champion was more than anybody else. I think Hangman Page is easily the worst. You know, and it's, even though they're booking him stronger than they booked the other guys. But I think Moxley, when you look at, he was, you know, they literally put the entire company behind him in this whole Unchained, you know, he's not Dean Ambrose anymore, but he was the guy that WWE was pushing. He was one of the guys that they were pushing, and they kind of needed him to really hit a home run in terms of being a top guy. Unfortunately, I think his title run was largely in front of, you know, nobody due to the COVID restrictions. But I definitely think that he was, you know, for me, he was the best champion. Also, John says, other question. What are the top 5 wrestlers in the 2010s to today you think sabotage their own careers? Number 1, Tessa Blanchard. Tessa Blanchard should be making a lot more money in WWE as a centerpiece of their women's division. If Tessa Blanchard had not fucked over everybody that she had in the past, she sabotaged her own career. She fucked herself up. And here's the thing. Even if you don't believe that Tessa Blanchard is a racist, and I don't believe Tessa Blanchard is a racist, just the fact that the way she handled the situation is negative. You know, her handling of the situation was negative, and it made her toxic. And then she signed to Women's of Wrestling. People complained about it, and then she taunted them with a t-shirt. And I was just kind of like, no, you can't do that. I understand not wanting to apologize. I understand denying that it occurred. But Tessa Blanchard really fucked herself up with the way she handled the WOW Women of Wrestling return. Because it was an opportunity for people for her to show people that, you know, she wasn't the bitch that everybody was saying she is. But her handling of Impact and when she refused to come back and drop the belt, that alone should have been like, all right, we can't do business with this chick. You know, she's going to give her, we made her the first women's world champion of a major wrestling promotion, and she fucked us over. That alone would do bad. That's bad business. But then the WOW Women of Wrestling thing, people are kind of like, nah, man, we're done with that. Velveteen Dream would be on this list, only because, I mean, of the way he handled the situation. You know, he didn't make any public comments or any public statements. Granted, he was probably told by WWE not to address it. He probably should have addressed it anyway, if we're being honest. Austin Aries is another one. He's a big one. Austin Aries is huge. Austin Aries was a guy that complained about not being put on the pre-show for WrestleMania because he wasn't going to. I mean, it's a good business decision to complain about that. But ultimately, when you look at the situation, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what they were going to do. And sometimes they do put pre-show on the DVD. So you fucked yourself up with that one, because there have been WrestleMania pre-shows that were on the DVD. And you could have said, okay, look, we're not going to be on this on the DVD. Can I be compensated for that, at least in some way? And kept it under wraps. But Austin Aries not only fucked up his run in WWE, he's also fucked up his Impact run numerous times. Teddy Hart is on this list too. Teddy Hart just has so many fuck ups. That's not even worth talking about. This is a guy that WWE fired him before he even made TV twice. You know, how do you get hired twice and fired before you even make TV twice? You know, like he's a fuck up. You know, like some of these guys are just real fuck ups. You know, Enzo Amore, again, not his fault that he was accused of, rape. You know, but the way he handled it was the shits. And then his behavior after the fact, where he tried to sneak into Survivor Series and make a big deal and, make noise and all this kind of stuff. It's like, bro, any opportunity that you had of getting back into WWE, because somebody would have felt bad for you, like, yeah, we did kind of fire this guy for no fucking reason. Maybe we ought to give him a second chance. He fucked that up, so those would probably be the top ones. Austin Aries, Tessa Blanchard, Teddy Hart, Enzo, and, yeah, they suck. So Darren Miles with another question. Who do you think is going to buy Impact Wrestling? I think WWE will probably end up buying their library eventually, but I don't think Anthem is going to be willing to sell unless they lose so much money on the property that they can't make it back. And do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. It can't be making any money right now. When you look at Impact, it's a huge library. It's 20 years of wrestling. It features Kurt Angle and Sting and Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy. All of these are WWE guys. WWE can mine that stuff forever. Like they've been mining the WCW stuff and the ECW stuff for 20 years already. Documentaries, movies, all this kind of shit. They would definitely want the Impact documentaries and stuff like that. Ring of Honor, maybe not so much. Maybe they wouldn't even, there's stories to tell with Ring of Honor, but not nearly the stories that they could tell with Impact. And I think they would probably really spend the money on Impact. Now, I don't think they'll buy the company. Do I think they'll eventually just go and try to buy the library? Yeah, I do think they'll eventually try to buy the library. The entire company, though, probably not. Because what is Impact worth, really? Compared to, the amount of money that they make. What is Impact even worth? I don't know. Darren Miles with another question. Do you think there'll be another wrestling promotion as big as WWE or AEW? Unless another billionaire gets involved. If Amazon or Disney decides to launch a wrestling promotion, then sure. If not, then no. Probably not. And to be as big as WWE, never. It would have to be Disney will have to run a wrestling promotion in order for it to be WWE size, but they would have to start from scratch, but they have infinite money to spend. And that's going to be the big difference is, do you have infinite money? Tony Khan, kind of. Vince McMahon, kind of. Amazon, yes. Disney, yes. Most other promotions or most other companies don't have infinite money. Does Warner Brothers Discovery, pretty sure they have infinite money. They could just buy AEW if they wanted it. Would they? It's a private company. Tony Khan probably wouldn't even probably could say no, he doesn't want to sell it. But it'd probably be up to his dad at that point. And maybe it would be a thing where Tony bought Ring of Honor because his dad's going to sell AEW. I'm going to put that conspiracy theory out there. But I don't think so. Not unless a huge mega corporation decides to get into the wrestling business. Do I see WWE or AEW getting any serious competition in terms of a national touring promotion? Darren Miles with another question. Should religion be part of pro wrestling? I said before that I think anything can be a part of the show. Just all about the presentation of it. You could present something like Islam in a really good way. You could present it as heelish too. You could have jihadi wrestlers if you wanted to, but not in this current environment. In this current environment, people are far too sensitive. So I would stay away from it, but you probably could. If I ran a wrestling promotion, would I? Yes, absolutely. I would have Islamic heels and Islamic baby faces just to kind of counteract each other. Christian heels and Christian baby faces. Christianity isn't all good things, right? You have the You you have the Crusades, okay? You have the Ku Klux Klan. You have a lot of Christians who did some fucked up stuff, and use God and the Bible to do it. So you can always use religion as babyface or heel material. Voodoo is another one, babyface or heel material. You have it there. And I think the problem throughout history has always been the one-sidedness of it, as Muslims only being seen as villains, or Christians only being seen as good guys, even though you can be a heel Christian. That's been the problem. You can easily fix that situation. All right. Juan Unda. He has 3 questions, and these are the final 3 questions. 1, how big of an ECW fan were you? I was a regular, mandated that I would watch it on TV. I would set my timer to record ECW, because usually I was playing video games at 1 a.m. or whatever. So I was not, must see, must watch ECW at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I would tape it though, and I would watch it probably the next day. But I watched every show, and I didn't watch any of the pay-per-views though. So I wasn't that huge of a fan that I watched all of the pay-per-views. I've been trying to watch ECWs from the beginning. I'm talking from the Eastern Championship Wrestling days. I caught a snag around 95, and I just kind of lost interest in it. But I watched most of the pay-per-view events on the network. I watched pretty much every pay-per-view that they've had. And I watched a lot of the Eastern Championship material. I don't think ECW is the best wrestling there's ever was, though. And I've never been on that train. I just think that it's different. I really don't compare wrestling companies that often, as much as I look at the differences between the two. Like, ECW did some things that I thought were pretty good, as far as realistic storylines, but then they would do outlandish things like, hit each other in the face with blueberry pies. You'd kind of be like, okay, I don't really need that. Every match is no disqualification, no count out. I really don't need that. It takes away storytelling, abilities at that point. But I was a pretty big fan of ECW at the time when I was 14, 15. I was watching it. I was definitely in there. But I wasn't in a hurry to buy the pay-per-views. And of the people that we knew that bought pay-per-views, nobody ever bought an ECW pay-per-view. Not one. WCW pay-per-views depends on what the main event is. But ECW pay-per-views, not a single one. Not one. The video game, didn't get that either. Second question. Who is better producer in your opinion? Cornette, Bischoff, or Russo? I think Cornette is more knowledgeable because he has more experience. I think if you actually look at the outcomes, everything Cornette has ever touched has failed. Everything he's ever touched has failed. Same thing can be said for all 3 of these guys. But when you look at who has achieved more success, nobody has achieved more success on this list than Bischoff. In terms of turning WCW around and taking them up to being the #1 wrestling promotion in the country, and maybe even the world, for a short amount of time. Bischoff is the only one that's ever done that. Vince Russo helped WWE regain the #1 spot, but when he went out on his own, it didn't work out. He flamed out in WCW. He flamed out in TNA. He flamed out so badly in TNA that the network didn't want to work with him anymore. Now, Bischoff flamed out in TNA too, but he also said he didn't have that much in the way of creative control or anything like that. So you're looking at, some really smart guys. I think if you take bits and pieces from all 3 of them, you get a very good wrestling producer. But if I was going to hire one of the 3 of them, I would probably hire Bischoff. That's me though. Because I think he understands what Cornette understands. He just doesn't have the deeper history of the understanding that Cornette has. He knows what works for television. He knows what wrestling fans are looking for. Russo has a good grasp on what the average person is looking for out of a television show. The problem that Russo has is that he doesn't view the wrestling part as being important, and that's an issue. You got to have wrestling on a wrestling show. You got to, it can't be all disqualification and countouts. Like, that's what's turning into Raw and, SmackDown at this point. It's all disqualification and fucking countouts, so you can't do that 100 times on the show, but you do have to have some unexpected, and Russo does understand the unexpected. But Bischoff, with his Sarsa system, it also in there. Surprise, it's in there, and part of it. 3. It's the third question, the final question of the Q&A. Would you like to read the Dynamite TV script I submitted to Conan and AEW? He challenged me on his podcast a couple weeks ago to write one. Wow. Sure. Send it to my email. I'll look over it. But I'm interested in, people writing scripts for the wrestling show. Like, are you writing the language too? Or is it like a format where you say, seg 1, these two guys come out and they have a match, which is pretty much what Tony Khan does. But if you want to send it to my email, feel free to do so. So that's it for the April 2022 Q&A. I finally got it done. Thank you guys for your time. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.